there's a little bit of rebel in all of us. Like that's how our country was founded, and having that skill set is keeping that rebel spirit alive.
Yep.
Because that type, and I tell this to guys, I'm like, this is the kind of training that the government doesn't like. And if the government doesn't like something, that's called liberty.
Hey guys, Tom Marshall here with the RECOIL TV podcast, and today I'm sitting down with Sam Houston of Greenline Tactical. Sam, thanks so much for coming out and talking to us.
Yeah, man, happy to be here.
So let's start at the beginning. Tell us a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, and how you got into the military.
Sure. So, fairly typical story. I was a quintessential angry teenager. Grew up in kind of a weird, shitty household. I mean, it's a normal. Everybody's got fucking baggage these days. Was not a good student. Barely passed high school. I was not a lot of people know this, but I was into music, so I was playing a lot of guitar. And like people were like, "What are you gonna do after high school?" I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be in a band." And finally, my godmother at the time, I had been kicked out of the house and I was living with them. And she's like, "So what are you gonna do after high school?" I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna be in a band." She's like, "No, but seriously, what are you really gonna do?" I was like, "I don't know." She's like, "You need to join the military." And I had a couple family friends who were in, and they were in the Navy. And then, oh, by the way, I saw Top Gun, and man, hook, line, and sinker. Yeah. I walked right into that recruiter's office and I said, "I want to fly F-14 Tomcats." And that recruiter looked at me, he said, "Absolutely not. You don't have a college degree." I said, "Well, what's the next best thing?" And they were like, we got this aircrew program. They were telling me about it. I was like, "That sounds cool, sign me up." So, I ended up passing high school. Like, it was kind of like that scene in Forrest Gump where the principal goes to Mrs. Gump and he's like, he's gonna have to go to a special school kind of thing. Like, I was not a good student, and I by the skin of my teeth, I passed high school. And looking back on it, man, if they'd have just said, "Hey, if you pay attention in science and math, because it applies to shooting guns and night vision and all this subatomic particle sciencey stuff," I'd have been right there. I'd have been like, "Okay, cool, periodic table, let's do this. Let's do trigonometry. Let's if you put a gun in my hand and I can do trig, then Anyway, so join the military. I ship out in September of 2001, and within 48 hours of shipping out, the towers come down. So we went from a peacetime military to a wartime military in the blink of an eye. I knew 48 hours of peace, and then it was right into it. But it's not like I immediately went overseas. My training pipeline was like 2 years, and by the time I got qualified, I actually deployed to the Pacific. I did a Westpac deployment, like Japan, Philippines, China, Thailand, and a lot of stuff was actually going on at the time. I don't know how much detail you want me to get in on that stuff, but suffice to say, the global war on terror was global, and there was stuff going on in the Pacific Rim that kind of played into it, and we were doing stuff to combat certain entities down there, and then obviously keeping up with intelligence and surveillance and reconnaissance on certain nefarious actors in the region that are still keep a good watch on. Next deployment to the desert, do the whole boots on the ground. Like we were in Iraq and we're getting mortared and everything like that, and then flying these missions and stuff like that for about 6 months. And I was right into a real special program. We were doing really, really super secret, squirrel crap that I don't even know if I can talk about it anymore. I'm pretty sure you can, but I'm not going to. But suffice to say, when we got back, we got debriefed by a 3-letter agency on what we were actually doing, and we're like, "Oh crap, that's a big fucking deal." At the time, it was boring. I mean, it was just like we're looking windows at 25,000 feet, and you're like, "This is, what are we doing up here?" And then, a couple months later, you get to see the fruits of your labor, and you're like, "Oh, that actually saved a whole lot of people's lives and killed a whole lot of bad guys." So that was cool. But and then after that, like, I was hooked. I was like, this war thing, like, I want to help out. I want to do more than what I'm doing. So I started applying for like special programs. I applied to the Army warrant program because I was actually started flying helicopters just for shits and gigs, but there was an ulterior motive. I was like, I'd like to do this in the military. So I actually got accepted twice to the Army, but the Navy wouldn't give me a conditional release. So I was kind of bitter. So I applied to a couple other special programs in the Navy, and they still wouldn't let me go because I was in such a critically undermanned job. So that kind of sucked. So eventually I found a loophole in my contract, and I was like, hey guys, I'm gonna get out unless you give me orders to this Naval Special Warfare program or this pipeline or whatever. And they were like, sorry man, we're not gonna do it. And so I was still buddies with a lot of guys, so I was like, all right, dude, I'm out, but I'll stay in the reserves. I'll still fly and do my job when I'm home, but I'm going to take this contracting gig. So I applied to a company called In Situ. They flew UAVs, and actually it was very similar to a program I applied to in Naval Special Warfare, but I actually got the job as a contractor, making like 7 times more money as a contractor than I would have as a sailor. So, did that. I probably went on 6 or 7 deployments, anywhere from 4 to 6 months, doing that stuff, looking for dudes planting IEDs in roads or shooting at patrols and then calling in RD strikes on them and or vectoring a jet or a helicopter in on them. I mean, we were doing a lot of stuff. I mean, just we call it squashing bugs,
Yep.
Just stomping roaches here and there. And like, hell, one deployment, we killed like 500 dudes in like 4 months. And I was like, wow, that's a lot of dudes. Like, holy crap. Maybe we can win this war. No, we can't. But
and you never ran out of them either.
right, no. And it was cool. I really liked it because I knew I was saving dudes' lives and hurting on the enemy and degrading their ability to maneuver freely in the battle space. So one deployment I was embedded with an ODA. I've gone on patrols with them and stuff like that. We had a combat controller who was a JTAC with us, and I was like, man, this JTAC stuff is freaking cool. And he was like, yeah, JTAC's cool. So a couple years later, when all the contracts started drying up, because I actually shifted over to Africa, and I was flying a ISR sensor operator on like a RC-12 B-200 King Air, flying over the jungle looking for like Boko Haram and LRA and doing some crazy stuff. Like, looking back on it, like if you've ever seen that movie Blood Diamond, there were so many scenes in that movie that actually played out in real life. Like, Africa is a different place. Yeah. It's kind of the Wild West, and you never kind of know what's going to happen. But it was an adventure. It was really cool. Never got into anything crazy over there. Like, it was tense, and then all of a sudden it's like, oh hey, everybody's cool. But Africa is very interesting. It was nothing like Afghanistan and nothing like Iraq, so it was a bit of a culture shock. I wouldn't say culture shock, but it was vastly different. Yeah, you were like, we ain't in Kansas anymore, Toto, kind of thing. So eventually the contracts started to dry up, and it's like I could have applied at a couple other places, but I kind of read the writing on the wall, and I was like, maybe God's trying to tell me it's time to transition into something else. And because I know dudes who contract, and it's just like at the end of when they retire, they're like, man, I basically spent the last 20, 30 years out of the country. I miss birthdays, and you don't have much of a life. And some would say I don't have much of a life now, but I'm still here in the U.S. But I kind of took the opportunity to start looking for something else. I used my GI Bill for a little bit. College really wasn't for me. But in and amongst that, I started working for Don Edwards. And when I say start working, like, I was like stapling targets and moving steel around the range, and like, it was a range bitch. Yeah. And that's cool because I got to shoot here and there, and so we did that for a number of years. And also in and amongst that time frame, I got hired at TNVC to be like a part-time goggle builder. So I kind of joke around. I'm like, yeah, actually, I'd like clean the shitters and take the trash out and occasionally build a PVS-14. But I kind of looked for work when I got there, and I was a real go-getter, as they say. So I worked myself into a full-time position. It was originally part-time, and they were like, no, dude, you got some stuff. that we need. So we're going to bring you on full time as a program manager. So I ran the build and repair program for Tactical Night Vision Company for 3.5-ish years. So if you bought a night vision system that was built at TNVC between, we'll say 2017 and 2020, actually between 2015 and 2020, I probably built it, or at least QC'd it. Anyway, things happened. The company ended up shifting operations. They wanted to centralize things in California, so we retrograded the office back to California. I worked remote in Florida, but I helped set up the build facility out in California. Did that. I was a special projects manager for a long time, which is kind of an arbitrary term for the jack of all trades in the company. Like, I can build stuff, so if they need to augment the build team, they'd fly me out. I can go do product demos for law enforcement, military. I can T&E gear. I can do R&D stuff. Jack of all trades in the company.
Right.
Like, they're really
whatever needs doing.
The only thing that maybe I wasn't good at was like doing, politically correct, corporate talk. So outside of that, I could do just about anything in the company. And in and amongst that, I knew John Lovell, and John had kicked out on his own from the old entity that he worked for, and he started up the Warrior Poet Society thing. And John and I were hanging out. This was late 2016, and I was like, "Hey, how are classes going?" He's like, "Man, I'm busy. It's awesome, but I am just driving myself into the dirt, working really hard." And I just off the cuff comment, I was like, "Hey, if you ever need help, let me know," because I'm already working for Don. I already know how to run a range and do certain things. About 3 months later, he's like, "Dude, I need your help. Can you be in Vegas in January?" I was like, "I'll be out there for SHOT Show, so yeah, I'll just on the back end, I'll help you teach the class." So that was our first official class together in January 2017, and I've worked for John ever since then, and Don as well. Eventually, I parted ways with TNVC, not in a bad way, still got a great relationship. As a matter of fact, we were out at, Vic's house doing some filming just a few weeks ago, smoking cigars and hanging out with the dude. So I still got a great relationship with TNVC. I'm more than happy to fly their flag. And they do sort of support Greenline, so that's cool as well. And then, and I guess that was about 2.5 years ago, I went to training full time. Let me back up a little bit, but in and amongst that, I was like, I'm gonna get back in the Guard. So I joined an Air Force JTAC unit. Kind of long story short on that one. Don't try to go to a really arduous selection process when you're 37 years old in the military. When you're already kind of a broken vet, it doesn't generally pan out too well. My body just broke. Like, I could not physically. I was in great shape when I went in, but just the constant grind and the wear and tear on your body just wore my, joints and back and legs and feet and ankles out. And I limped out of there about halfway through the pipeline. But it was a lot of fun. I'm still really good buddies with a lot of guys. They call me for night vision questions.
Yeah.
They've come to, train with me. For gun stuff, night vision stuff, all kinds of stuff. You probably met some of them at the summit, but still got a great relationship with the guys in that pipeline. Ended up switching over to the Florida Guard, was a forward observer in a advisory unit for about 2.5 years. It was during the COVID thing, the vaccine thing, and I was doing jujitsu. I tore my rotator cuff. And I also told them, I was like, I'm not getting that vaccine. And they were like, okay, we're gonna separate you from service. Whether it's for your rotator cuff because you're jacked up or refusing the vaccine, I was like, hey, do what you gotta do, whichever's easier for you.
Take your pick, yeah.
Yeah, so I stuck to my guns and they ended up parting ways. It was funny because like 6 months later, they were like, hey, you wanna come back? I was like, absolutely not. But I was full-time training at that point and hit the ground running. I'm probably on this range 200 days a year, either with Warrior Poet Society or Greenline. I'm doing some consulting here and there for certain businesses, mostly in the night vision sector for product development here and there. some other stuff. And then, between the two entities I work for and the guys I work for and myself, I know everybody in this industry. Yeah. So people know who I am. Better or for worse, people know who I am. And, people ask me all the time, hey, can you tell me what you think about this? And if they're buddies, it's like, yeah, cool. But eventually it's like, let's sign a consulting agreement kind of thing. Like you're wanting more than just a, hey, thumbs up, thumbs down. You're wanting actual feedback and T&E on this stuff. Anyway, but going into the training stuff, it's been an interesting journey because I don't have a special operations background and I barely have a combat arms background. But a lot of the things I learned in the aviation realm, you can apply them just kind of like a decision-making process and how you approach problems, and it's really helped me. Like, we got a lot of guys at Greenline and Warrior Poet Society who are like soft backgrounds, and that's great. And that's the right tool for the job many times. But every once in a while, I'm like, hey, you think about doing it this way? And they're like, I never would have thought about that. I'm like, yeah, because you think like a Ranger, or you think like a Green Beret, and I think like an aviator. And it's that yin and yang. It works out. And as you saw this weekend, the class that you did was the fusion of SOF and aviation put together, and it just works out. It's great. And to John's credit, they have assembled a great team of guys. It's not just me. It's just we're the greater. The sum is greater than its parts, kind of thing. Yeah. So there's a lot of force multiplication in the guys that work at these companies, and and they're all cool. It's just like we get along great. We don't, I guess. There's occasional headbutting because you're going to get that with Type A's, but it's never like malicious, and nobody goes behind each other's backs and like backstabs or anything like that. So it's great. And between the two companies, like there's very little overlap, so there's very little conflict. I cover down on basic, fundamental rifle pistol stuff with Warrior Poet Society, and that's about 95% of what I do there. And then with Greenline, it's more of your specialized niche classes, night vision, aviation stuff, they're red dot pistol. So those are the ones that I mostly cover down with Greenline, and they're all cool. Like I really do enjoy the WPS curriculum. I think it's and I'm a big training junkie too. So I try to go to a class a quarter. If I can. If I had more time and resources, I'd do it more. Before I was training, man, I would probably do 6-8 classes a year minimum, and I spend a lot of time on the range. So I see how other people's curriculum stacks up to both of the entities, and I sit back, I'm like, this is really solid curriculum. Like we can compete and we can compete with anybody else out there. We're as good, if not better, than many people out there for both Greenline and WPS. That said, we're never stagnating. We're constantly like feeling things out, and we're willing to learn, because we learn more every year about shooting. People are better shooters. Like if you look at the top shooters these days versus the top shooters 10, 15 years ago, they're better.
Significantly different.
It's like athletes. Like athletes in like the NFL, if you look at their numbers versus athletes in the 1960s, it's night and day, Same thing goes. So it's, we're constantly like keeping our finger on the pulse of the industry and updating curriculum as required. And I tell people, I'm like, especially in our night fighter class, this is a living, breathing organism, this lecture. And, we may find out something in a year or 3 or whatever that may be counter to what I'm putting out now. So understand that I don't know everything, and I learn things and I update things because I think they're applicable and I think you need to know them. So yeah, there's things that I wouldn't say I've done a 180, but there's things that I was absolutely vehemently against, 5 years ago. And now I'm like, no, in this context, maybe you should do that. But here's the context that I've seen where it's applicable to you. So I'm not necessarily going to poo-poo on just everything sort of stuff. But yeah.
So I do want to talk about some more training stuff, but before we get to that, I kind of really want to rewind on a couple of things you said early on. So 9/11 was like 2 days, 3 days after you.
Yeah.
So were you in boot camp at that point?
I showed up I think I showed up at like 4 a.m. or something like that on September 10th. So about 29 hours later.
Oh man, that was like
20,
still
30 hours
like
later.
day zero reception.
Yeah.
At that point. Okay.
Oh yeah.
So what was that experience like going from having maybe not had always looked at the military as a life goal, and it was, maybe an alternative to winding up down a bad path, not thinking that was what you were signing up for?
Yeah, when I signed up, I was like, I guess I did not have the mindset that I have today. You're young, you're impressionable. Dude, when I was 18 years old, just like all of us, we don't know shit about fuck. And I wasn't even thinking that I was like, oh yeah, it's just gonna be a peace. I'm gonna do 4 or 5 years peacetime, and then I'll get out, and nothing's gonna happen. Like I was thinking like, oh, the wars are behind us. The last war we had was, the Gulf War, and that wasn't even really anything. And so yeah, that was big. Like, holy crap! So they came into the squad bay there, and they're beating trash cans. They're like, we're going to war, and I was like, yeah, they're just jacking with us guys. Like, they do this to everybody.
Yeah.
No, but the planes that hit the towers, and I was like, oh man. So I wasn't like, oh my God, I shouldn't be here. I was like, wow, it just got really real. Oh look, a dog, cool. But a lot of guys were like, I just joined for the college money.
Right.
I'm like, yeah, you fucked up, man. Like,
no such thing as a free lunch.
It's not like I expected it either.
Right.
But I wasn't freaked out, and I was like, okay, so who was it? The Russians, the Chinese, the North Koreans? They were like, no, man, Muslim terrorists. And I was like, all right, I can learn to hate them. I can dehumanize those people. Let's do this. Teach me. No. But I still had 2 years of training ahead of me. But yeah, I was like, oh, that was probably the first like slap in the face I got of reality. Like, hey, here's the real world. There are bad people in this world, and they are willing to do crazy, crazy things, and they want to kill you, or your way of life and what you stand for. And I was like, okay, like again, looking back on that, I had grown up in this insulated bubble that is, Austin, Texas. And if you know anything about Austin, Texas, it's even more of a freaking, snow globe with all the snowflakes inside of it today than it was, 23 years ago. But I still, I grew up in a pretty affluent, upper middle class neighborhood. And I was the only person from my graduating class to even join the military. Had a couple guys do it after 9/11 because the call to serve was real, but I was the only person who joined. Basically, I didn't need some fucking Toby Keith song to inspire me to join the fucking military like these other jokers. No, just kidding. But it was like, oh, shit just got real. Okay, all right. So that was that.
You didn't get to fly F-14s.
No.
What aircraft were you on?
So originally I was going to try out for helicopter rescue swimmer. Basically be a crew chief, door gunner, SAR swimmer kind of thing. However, I didn't get it. I volunteered for that when I was in aircrew school, but I didn't get it contracted. But I got to aircrew school and they had this massive influx of people joining because I got there in November. So obviously you had a month and a half for people to run down to the recruiting office and be like, let's go get them. And so a lot of people came in. So after I volunteered, they came back and they were like, actually, we've got an influx of dudes who have it guaranteed in their contract. You're going to go be a dry air crewman, which means you don't jump in the water, which means you're probably going to be a fixed wing air crewman. And at the time, I was like, that's bullshit. I was kind of crushed. Looking back on it, best thing that ever happened to me. Just set me up for success so much. I know a lot of SAR swimmer dudes in the Navy and Coast Guard, but mostly the Navy. And dude, they're not super technical. It would be very hard. It would have been very hard for them to roll into some of the things that I've done and get the experience and do and see some of the things that I've seen. Not disparaging that. It's cool in its own right. But most of those guys, they do 4 years and then they're sick of being on a boat. Mm-hmm. So that sucks. Anyway, so they were like, yeah, you're probably going to go be a dry crewman. So made it through aircrew school, went through the tech school, which is just an electronics technician, but the aviation side. It was pretty technical. And that there was a lot of carryover of bad study habits that I still had from high school, and I barely passed that. It's really, however, the military is good. They will motivate you, whether you want to or not. But when they were like, yeah, if you don't pass, you're gonna go chip paint on a ship for the next 4 years and fucking hate your life. And I was like, oh shit, yeah, no, I'm not gonna do that. So, I fucking started studying and paying attention, and I passed. I started doing pretty well. I had to really apply myself. It didn't come naturally, and a lot of things in this life don't come naturally. But if I apply myself, I tend to figure shit out. But anyway, made it through. Went to SEER, did get beat up in the woods kind of thing. Did that, and then at the time, if you wanted to be stationed in Maine, you could be stationed in Maine. And I was like, hey, I went to SEER in Maine, and I was like, oh, it's really nice up here. And it was really before the winter hit. Uh-huh. It was like the New England fall, which was beautiful.
It's really nice now.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I had never, I grew up in Texas, and I'd been in Florida, so I'd never seen a New England, fall with the changing of like a seasonal change. Like you have summer, and then you have 4 weeks of winter, and then rainy season, and then it's right back into summer in the South. So that was, I was like, man, it'd be badass to be stationed up here. So they were like, oh, you want to go to Maine? You're going to Maine. I was like, cool. And I loved it. It was awesome. I got, as long as you were willing to be outdoorsy. So in the winter, I would go skiing. I would go ice fishing, do a little cold weather camping here and there, or just drink beer, whatever. And in the summer, I'd go off-roading and hunting and fishing and hiking and stuff like that. So if you're outdoorsy oriented, Maine was actually really cool. Totally underrated state. Love it. Still go up there from time to time. A lot of buddies up there. I've tried to teach classes up there every once in a while, or at least close to there, so I can go see my friends. But I was up there for 5.5 years. Obviously deployed and deaded out many, many times. So I was not in Maine for the entire time, but I did get to see a good slice of New England. Anyway, you come up for orders, and I had been applying for those special programs, and they're like, no, you can go here or here. One of them was Maryland, and I was like, yeah, gun laws in Maryland. Nah, fuck that. And the other one was Florida. I was like, cool, Florida. So I went down to Jacksonville. I was an instructor at the schoolhouse, and it was supposed to be kind of easy duty, because you'd been slogging it out on a deploying unit, and you're supposed to go, have easy instructor duty. Man, I was working 50, 60 hours a week as an instructor. It was me and 2 other dudes doing 75% of the work, and while these other 10, they were E6s. They were like, yeah, I've got a family, so you guys got to cover down because you guys are all single. I'm like, okay, how is that fair? They're like, oh, well, I'm also an E6 and you're not. And I'm like,
yeah, military's really good at that
sometimes.
Yeah.
So, and that's when I was like, maybe I need to look for something else. Yeah. It was a cool job being a P-3 air crewman. I got to travel to 56 different countries, and we participated in all kinds of contingencies around the globe that nobody even realizes there was a P-3 there, or 2 or 3 P-3s there. But any crisis you can think of that happened in the last 20 years, I almost guarantee, 30, 40, 50 years, almost guarantee you there's a P-3 on station there. They're constantly flying, and it's maritime patrol and reconnaissance. You got to go out there, and you got to just fly around and look for shit.
I was just going to ask, for those that are not familiar, tell us a little bit about what the P-3 is and kind of where does it fit into, the maritime and air war type space.
Sure. So the P-3 is a naval asset. It is a 4-engine turboprop aircraft. Same engine as the C-130. So you hear it coming, you're like, is that a C-130 or a P-3? It's got super long legs. She can stay aloft for anywhere from 12 to 16 hours, depending on winds aloft, weight, if you shut an engine down, or two to loiter it to save gas, and a couple other factors. But she got some long legs. Like, we could fly from Jacksonville, Florida to Whidbey Island, Washington, across the country. Wow. And land and still have several thousand pounds of gas on board. I have flown from, where did we take off out of? We took off out of Rota, Spain, and flew all the way to Brunswick, Maine in one tank of gas. I've flown from Washington to Hawaii. I've flown from Hawaii to Japan in one shot. She'll go. And she's, for a prop plane, she's pretty fast. Like, C-130 guys, if you're listening, we'll run you down. Like, we can cruise at about 100 knots faster than a C-130. And we do a lot of counter drug stuff, believe it or not. So we'll run down drug runner planes, and then we don't shoot them down, but we'll take pictures of them. We'll cross-reference those pictures with our database, and then if they're a known drug runner plane, then we'll just call the Air Force or the Colombian Air Force, and they will shoot you down. But we'll do it in the dead of night. You'll have no idea. We're 500 meters off your wing taking your shots. And that was down in Southcom. But the P-3 is very much the jack of all trades, master of none asset in the Navy. It's not talked about a lot. We're perfectly content, kind of just hanging out in the shadows. We're not like the SEAL community where we're like, yeah, this is what I did, look at me, kind of thing. Obviously, I'm joking, but I'm kind of not joking. But we can do anti-submarine warfare. We can do surface warfare. We can do mining. We can do search and rescue. We can do surface search. We can basically fly out ahead of the battle group, and we can extend the range of what they can see through. We can send them what we see on our radar through data links and everything like that. We can do C4 command and control stuff. We can act as an on-station command node for certain contingencies. We can do over the horizon targeting. It's just, the plane has so much gear and shit on it. It can do all kinds of crap, and that because of that, and it's an old airframe, and some of the gear is kind of old. It's kind of a piece of shit sometimes. So shit breaks in flight. So that's what, I was like kind of like a computer nerd, like Geek Squad in flight. Mm-hmm. So if the plane systems were, failing or whatever, I'd go kick boxes and reseat cannon plugs and pull cards and do the old Nintendo blow off. I'm like, no bullshit. Yeah. Like, that is a technique for old analog, cards and stuff. Working on, we worked on digital displays. I worked on cathode ray tube stuff. Like, I walked on my first plane and I was like, is this like a B-17 from World War II? This is old as shit. But there was other planes that had super high speed whiz bang shit. So you had to know all the different variants of the planes and how to work on each variant. It was, my generation had the honor of having to have a lot of knowledge. Now, the older generation, they definitely knew, like, you look at those guys, you're like, those guys knew a lot. But I look at the new generation, it's like, they only had one type of aircraft to learn. Mm-hmm. Not that they were stupid, good for them for only having to learn one type of aircraft. They were probably better on that one type of aircraft than I was on the 4 different versions that I had to fly on. But it was interesting, man. Like, you could be flying at 200 feet in the middle of the night, launching sonobuoys, and then you get some frago, some tasking, and then you're overland looking for an enemy encampment with your FLIR camera, or locking an enemy ship up on your radar and launching harpoon missiles at it, or doing battle damage assessment for the TAC aircraft, or some fisherman falls off a ship and you got to go out and find him, and then potentially push a raft out, a survival raft and survival pack to him. I have a couple buddies who have, deployed SAR kits and saved a lot of people over the years. There's a couple of YouTube videos of my buddies, pushing crap out the door. It's pretty exciting shit. But yeah, that plane, I learned to love that plane. Like, it was my office, it was my apartment, it was my, hangout. I logged about 2,000 hours in about 8 years of flying, it's considered a real solid number. There's guys who got a little bit more and guys who got way less than me, so 2,000 hours was pretty respectable. And if the Navy had let me keep flying and I didn't have to work some stupid ground job or go be an instructor, if I could have just stayed doing that, I might have stayed. Like, I love flying. Talk to anybody, like, what are my favorite classes? Aviation, yeah. For sure. It's in my blood. But yeah, the P-3 was really cool, and then eventually the plane got old, and I could see the writing on the wall. My job was going away. They were decommissioning and retrograding that plane. It's currently being replaced, and just about 100% has been replaced by the new P-8 Poseidon, and that's a badass plane. I got buddies flying on that, and they're like, dude, that plane in 30 seconds will do what it took us 3 hours to do. Like the comparison is the P-3 was analog, this thing is full digital, and it's got the processor speed to back it up. And the dudes who were doing it, they're like, dude, it's like pistol whipping a blind kid. It's so easy. It's awesome. So
when you transitioned from active duty to contract, you'd mentioned that you were more kind of UAV focused.
Right.
So was it similar in that you were like a sensor operator or maintainer for like tactical level UAVs?
Yep. So I started out on the Scan Eagle, running EO, IR camera systems, looking for bad dudes, and then eventually you get a little bit of experience, and they're like, hey, we're going to send you to the maintenance school. So I was a site lead, not a site lead. I was head maintenance lead at one of my sites, two of my sites that I went to. So not only was I flying them and looking for stuff on the ground, when they'd come back, I'd have to service them and do upgrades, software upgrades, and weight and balance. And if one crashed and I could salvage it and repair it and bring it back up, I would do all that. And it was cool, man, because you're on these FOBs, you're on these COPs, living coexisting with all the infantry line units. You get to know them, and when they kick out on patrol, those guys, and you get the call, like a troops in contact comes in, and you're like, oh, I know those guys, and we got it down. Like we could just be chilling, and we could get the tick call, we could have a bird off the rail headed towards them in less than 10 minutes. Really fast response time, like NASCAR pit crew efficiency when all the dudes were firing on all 8 cylinders. It was pretty impressive. And then we could stay aloft over them for 12 hours if we needed to. So, we could cover their ass. And it was cool because you get up over on top of somebody, you can't really hide from that shit, and then we just put the camera on you, and the camera will instantly give us the grid, and I just start passing grids. It's like, hey, there's an enemy position here, and it'll give me down to 10 meter. Like, it'll definitely give me an 8-digit grid. Sometimes it'll give me a 10. Sometimes give me a 10. Yeah, and then we can compare it with our targeting software and like really narrow it down and good enough to like start dropping arty, start having a jet drop a JDAM, HIMARS, Cobra, Apache attack helicopters. I'm trying to think other stuff that we did. Indirect fire, close air support, close combat attack, all that stuff. It was pretty cool. And you're the dude. You're using a Radio Shack security camera and a weed whacker engine to totally influence how this fight's going and stop it most of the times, or see stuff and stop it before it even starts. Yeah. Like, you get to dictate how that dude's digging a hole in the road and he's putting a jug of HME in it. Like, well, let's do one of two things. We'll mark that position and we'll follow him back to his house. We'll mark that house, and then we'll send engineers in, or EOD, defuse the bomb or whatever, and then we'll send the Rangers, and we'll go kick his door in and yank him out of his bed in the middle of the night by his hair. Kind of thing. So it was pretty cool. Definitely loved doing that stuff, and the pay wasn't bad either.
Yeah, usually isn't. Then in Africa, you were back on board.
Yep.
As a sensor operator.
Yeah. So there's a company called Commuter Air Technology, and they needed sensor operators, and that was a good deal. You'd fly one day, day off, fly it one day, day off, and they usually did like 2 to 3 month rotations. And you got paid every day you were there. And the pay was not bad. So, in Africa, like I said, Africa was pretty cool looking back on it.
Yeah.
Again, wildly different vibe than Iraq, Afghanistan, but still pretty cool. So I logged about 2,000 hours in P3s in about 8 years of flying. I logged about 2,000 hours in 2 years working for CAT. I mean, I was flying my butt off. Like, we would go fly for 16 hours. Like, we'd take on gas at some jungle airstrip, but imagine sitting in a minivan for 16 hours behind a computer screen, like just looking for shit on the ground, using cool technology, SWIR and laser rangefinders and, EOIR stuff. We had LiDAR, and all these different, reconnaissance systems, fusing them together, and it was pretty tough to hide from that stuff. So,
yeah. Let's talk about training.
Sure.
So, teaching for Warrior Poet and Greenline, what do you think what would you say your favorite classes to teach are?
For WPS, Rifle 2 or 3 is probably my favorite, but I do like some of the pistol stuff because we get a lot of like newer shooters, and just to watch people and like see those aha moments, the light bulb goes off and they connect the dots, and then you show them the thing and then you talk about how to do the thing, and then they practice doing the thing, and then you give them some on the spot corrections and coaching, and then they start doing the thing. And they have these all like, oh, okay, if I just grip harder or whatever, manipulate the trigger this way. Just to see people learn things, as a teacher, if you're not getting off on that, if you're getting off on helping people and learning a new skill, you're in the wrong profession. I love that. Love seeing people, get what they were after. Like, I want this training to be a good return on investment, because I know they spend a lot of money to be here. Good training isn't cheap,
right.
And cheap training generally isn't good. So I want them to learn things and have a lot of takeaways, and I love seeing the aha moments happen. And we see that a lot in the pistol classes, but also the rifle classes. The rifle, I don't want to get political or anything, but pistols they're a gentleman's weapon. They're defensive in nature. They're an officer's weapon, if you will.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
There's a little bit of sophistication with a handgun. If you look at the handgun, with a rifle, that's like your 454 Chevelle, right? That's raw, nasty power. American muscle, right?
Yeah.
There's something innately offensive about the rifle, and it's almost like a slice of Americana. You know what I mean? Like, no other country in the world gets to go do the stuff that we get to do. And, everybody's got their line in the sand. And if you have an AR-15 and you are well trained, at some point you can say no. Not a lot of people in the world have that option. And that gun and training people on that gun, I think it's our duty as a military age male, or really any citizen. I don't care if you're a dude or a chick or whatever. Like, if you can't pick up the standard issue, military rifle of your generation and load it, shoot it with a modicum amount of skill and what, like, dude, that's just, as Pat Mack likes to say, basic dude stuff. But I think that's like basic citizen stuff. If you had to come to the aid of your country for whatever reason, dude, like, that's part of being American. There's a little bit of rebel in all of us. Like, that's how our country was founded, and having that skill set is keeping that rebel spirit alive. Yep. Because and I tell this to guys, I'm like, this is the kind of training that the government doesn't like. And if the government doesn't like something, that's called liberty, right? When the people are afraid of their government, that's tyranny. When the government's afraid of the people, that's liberty. So doing that stuff, yeah, it's expensive. It takes time and dedication, but Like that's, to me, there's a whole there's another thing going on besides learning the skill set. There's like, the government's watching. I know they're watching. You're on a list. I'm on a list, and they know.
Well, they just brought a bill up about this.
100%.
Yeah, like very recently.
You know what I'm going to do?
Restrict what they're calling paramilitary training, which of course is a term that they are choosing to paint with an incredibly broad brush.
Yeah. But yeah, good for you patriots for doing that stuff. Like that's how you know like
You're doing something right.
doing something right.
Yeah.
Like you have triggered somebody, many people probably, and that's cool. So yeah, rifle stuff with WPS is pretty cool.
Teaching marksmanship is, I've had the opportunity. I don't do it formally, but we all coach our friends and family members and stuff like that. And I think one of my favorite parts about teaching marksmanship is that it is, for the student, it's so tangible for them to watch their, you talked about aha moments, but to watch whether it's they watch their group get smaller or they ring that steel at a distance that they previously thought that they couldn't hit. But the feedback is so immediate and so visceral for the student. To your point earlier, as an instructor or a coach or a trainer in whatever capacity that you are helping somebody else improve their skill set, that's really where the juice is. For the person kind of helping out is seeing that light bulb, that grin, that big smile, that moment of I didn't think I was capable of this.
That's the closest, like you said, tangible. That's the closest thing to being tangible, other than getting that course certificate at the end. Because, and I've had this discussion with people. They're like, "Oh, I don't need training. I'm just going to buy another gun." Because us guys, and even just our society, we're very, I guess, materialistic. We want the thing. We want to touch the thing. Training is a software upgrade. You can't touch it, taste it, feel it, smell it, other than that course certificate, and then seeing the fruits of your labor in the target kind of thing.
Yeah.
And so it's hard to, some people just can't check their ego and go to training. Like, I know a lot of people. They know what I do for a living. They know they could seek me out, or people like me. And I'm not saying you got to train with me. Like, there's a ton of qualified, awesome, trainers out there. Like, this industry, it's not oversaturated. It's saturated, which is a good thing. If you really think about it, I would say, other than like 1946, when the boys came back from overseas, we probably have the highest trained populace that this country has ever had. I mean, you've got like IT specialists, or I'm a pharmacist who can move, shoot, and communicate. Mm-hmm. Like, and they never served in the military, but they go out and they put in the work, and they go to classes and they train. Yeah. So.
I see a lot of IT guys. Do you see a lot of
tons.
There's like a couple of careers I feel like you sort of almost disproportionately see.
They're overrepresented, which goes to say, it's like, don't fuck with your IT guys at work. They'll kill you. They'll straight up. They're murderous. They're very, very deadly demographic of individuals, for sure. Yeah. Don't ask him to fix the printer unless you have exhausted every single. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Download those drivers so that he doesn't have to do that for you and berate you, and then possibly you make it onto his list when he freaks out. And no, I'm just kidding. But yeah, we get a lot of IT guys, guys, and medical professionals, nurses, PAs, doctors, firefighters. I guess they see all these different mechanisms of injury, and they're like, it'd be kind of cool to learn how to be that mechanism of injury. And they have disposable income as well.
Or to understand a little better how that mechanism works.
Correct.
Yeah.
And you're after you do the gun stuff, 18 holes of golf probably ain't gonna do it for you like a class does. Mm-hmm. So there's that. But the rifle stuff, love it. It's cool. It's America.
It is. What kind of training do you think what kind of classes do you, either as an instructor, wish people would take more of?
Medical.
Okay.
100%.
Yeah.
I took my first medical class. it was 2010. It was a Magpul Dynamics class taught by Kerry Davis, who's now Dark Angel Medical.
Yep.
Kerry's a great dude.
Yeah, I took his class a couple of years ago.
Yeah, and I was going into it. I knew I needed it. Like, I was like, this is something that I know that I need. I can't tell you why I need it, but I feel like I need this class. But I was super intimidated. I was like, I'm not a medic. I don't have really any. I'm a layman, basically. And I emailed Kerry, and I was like, hey, man, am I in over my head? Because if I am, like, keep my money, but I'll probably back out. Or do you have like an even more basic? He's like, no, this class is perfect for you. Come on. And I got there, and I was like, he kind of dumbed it down, and like I got it. I picked like keep the blood in the body, keep the heart pumping, keep them warm, keep them breathing. Mm-hmm. It's pretty simple. And he breaks it down very simply. Like anybody, like my mom drank a fucking lot of alcohol, like way into the third trimester. I've got a touch of the fucking fetal alcohols, and if I can get it, anybody can get it. So I appreciated his delivery on that, and I got it. And no shit, probably in the last 15 years, both overseas and here in the States, I've had to use that medical training. Car accidents, boating accidents, people fall off ladders and shit, people having seizures in grocery store parking lots, putting a tourniquet on a dude in Afghanistan, just all kinds of shit. I mean, and I've noticed this, especially because I've had a fair bit of medical training. I try to re-up it, annually if I can, but at least every 2 years. So like I'll go see Caleb Causey at Lone Star Medics. He's another awesome dude. Pat Krentz at WPS. We just stood up a medical program, and he's got awesome stuff. And it's like, don't just go take one medical class, and don't just go train with one guy. All these different guys, they're going to teach you different things. You're going to get really good at the things that they're really good at, but you're probably not going to get good at the things they're not good at or don't talk about.
Right.
And the same thing goes with the tactical firearms industry. So yes, medical training. I haven't shot anybody in the U.S. ever,
but
I have used my medical training a couple of times. And I was coming back from Texas, and I was in Louisiana. There's a massive car accident. It was one car, but everybody got ejected out of the vehicle. The two adults and an infant not in a car seat, just in a kid carrier. And I was the only one there that knew how to do anything for the first 10 minutes. And I'm running between three people, triaging and treating and trying to stabilize people. And there's 20 people up on the embankment, pulled over, and they're just watching me. Some are
cell phones out.
I didn't see anybody taking any videos, but I did see they're calling EMS, which I need people to do that. But nobody came down and helped me until about 10 minutes later, when this dude jumps down with this big aid bag, and I look up and he's got buzz cut. And I was like, hey, man, are you military? He's like, yeah, man, I'm a 68 whiskey out of Fort Hood. I was like, come on down, brother. Give me a hand.
Yeah.
But he was probably a PFC, maybe a specialist. Really young guy, probably 19, 20 years old. He was very nervous. He's like, we don't train for car accidents. This is, we train for battlefield stuff. And I was like, hey, man, trauma's trauma. Let's do this. Like Kerry says, keep them breathing, keep them warm, keep the blood in the body. If we do that, that's all we got to do. We worked on these three people until the fire and EMS guys showed up, and we gave them a pass down, and they were like, you guys did all this? And we're like, yeah. They're like, hell yeah. We helped them shut down the interstate. We landed a helicopter, and I helped carry the injured to the bird. Everybody was breathing and conscious when we put them on the bird. So, I did my job, I guess, and then jumped in my truck and just drove back to Florida. But I stopped I remember I stopped at Unity Tactical, because their office is right there in the next town. And I show up covered in broken glass and fire ant bites and mud and blood and just dirt and and they're like, dude, what happened? I was like, car accident, not me, stopped to help. Can I use your bathroom to clean up? And they were like, yeah, come on in, man, because I know the guys there. Yeah. But shit's gonna happen. I had a dude jump off a boat right onto an oyster bed. No feet, no shoes. It punji sticked his feet. It was bad. I thought he was getting attacked by a shark. But something told me that day, I was like, yeah, grab your Dark Angel medical, trauma kit and put it in your bag. Yep, I bandaged him up and sent him on his way.
That's basically like jumping off a boat into broken glass.
Yeah, F that.
Yeah.
0 out of 10 would recommend. He ended up, and I did my best. Like I poked a hole in a water bottle with my knife and tried to irrigate the wound and get all that, but oysters are nasty. He ended up getting a really bad blood infection. Damn near killed him, but he did recover eventually, but he was on, hardcore antibiotics for like 90 days or so. He was a cop in like Gainesville, Florida, I think. But yeah, so he was bleeding like a stuck pig when I got to him, but I stopped the bleeding, no big deal. Direct pressure in a I didn't have to like tourniquet it or anything, but I packed it and did a pressure dressing and told the driver on the boat, I was like, call 911, have the EMS meet you at the boat ramp and do a freaking, transfer with them. So they it was funny because the paramedics were like, hey, was there a doctor on the boat? And they were like, no, it's just some guy. So they were like, oh, he did a good job. So anyway.
You don't even need that much medical training to be really effective in a situation like that.
If you can keep your cool and you can remember some basic stuff, it's there's nothing you can do outside of a hospital scene that is so, unless you're like an 18 Delta and you're pushing whole blood and drugs and, you carry like a little defibrillator, which I do actually carry a defibrillator in my truck now. Had a dude have a heart attack on the range a year ago, and we had a defibrillator, and we saved him, and I was like, oh, well, these things work. I'm going to invest in one of those. So I've carried one ever since. It's for Dawn, just in case. He's getting long in the tooth,
Yeah, well, you got to look out for your own. You made a comment earlier about having kind of the most prepared citizenry as a body or as a society that we've had in a long time, and I tend to agree, given that we had 2 decades of a factory that produced veterans in 2 different companies, or 2 different countries, excuse me. But I also think that there's a lot of folks who, the last, let's say 3.5 years.
Right about when COVID hit.
Yeah, who are probably either a lot more serious about training now than they were before, or had maybe not considered that was something that they needed in their life, those skill sets. And maybe now they're in a position where they don't know what they don't know. They're not sure where to start. And maybe they have limited budgets, right? The economy certainly has not gotten any better in that 3 years. Would you have a recommended, I don't want to ask you to recommend a class, but what would a basic matrix or like training progression look like? If I'm starting from 0 and I just want to be, I'm not training for the zombie apocalypse, or I'm not training for Mad Max Wasteland, but I just want to be a more prepared citizen. I want to be a little more self-sufficient in those contingencies like we did see in 2020, 2021, what I call the low intensity apocalypse, right? Where do I start, and kind of what would a good roadmap look like?
Well, I think there's a couple things you can do at the same time. As far as like knowledge learning, dude, guns are awesome, dude, but honestly, start with medical. Yeah. But in parallel with that, dude, take care of yourself. And what I mean by that is like, dude, if you can't run like a sub 8-minute mile, like, dude, start working out. You need to be able to take care of yourself so you can take care of other people. And in some of the Warrior Poet classes or Greenline classes, there's some movement involved, and you're huffing and puffing. And I tell guys, I'm like, we all have this like fantasy where we're going to grab our gun and we're going to run to somebody's aid and in a blaze of glory and kill the bad guy, terrorist or whatever. But I'm like, realistically, it's probably not going to happen. It could, it might be, but what if you were in your backyard and you looked over 2 yards away and you saw a child fall in a pool? Can you run across your yard, hurdle 2 fences, and run through 3 yards, possibly 200 to 400 meters, and then when you get there, can you jump in the pool, save the infant, pull it or child, and pull it out, and then and render aid? Like, dude, if you can't even hobble over a fence, and do it. Like, this is gonna sound like really cynical and asshole-ish, but I'm okay with it, dude. You're a piece of shit. Like, you're a fat piece of shit, and you're a liability, and you could have done better. Like, people are like, oh, I don't have time to go to the gym. I wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning to go to the gym. I go, like, this class, I woke up in the morning and I went for like a 3-mile run. And I'm not a stud or anything like that. There's a million dudes better shape than me. But if something happens, I don't want it to be because I couldn't run 400 yards in 90 seconds or less. I don't want to lack mobility. You know, stronger people are generally more useful and harder to kill, as a fact. So if you think that you're going to make a difference, but you're a busted can of biscuits, you're probably not. You're probably going to gas out before you can ever make a difference. So take care of yourself. And it starts with just going for a walk. Like, if you take some steps, and then a walk can turn into a jog, and a jog can turn into, a run, and, go to the gym. Like, don't throw 400 pounds on the bench press and expect, like, dude, learn the mechanics of the bench press, and then start benching the bar. And then when you have good form, then start adding weight. It's a process. It's a journey. It's not going to happen overnight, but if you are taking steps, even small baby steps here, and it's better than nothing. Like, don't be sedentary. You've seen it, I've seen it. The guys who get sedentary and they don't do anything, then they start having all these health issues, and they just don't last very long. And then, there's people I see that are in their 80s and they're mowing their yard. They're walking, 18 holes of golf, and they're doing the thing. My dad, he's not in great shape, but he mows he's like 73 years old. He gets after it and mows, and he goes biking, and, he's doing the best he can. I mean, he's slowing down. He's not, a specimen or anything like that, but he's trying to not be sedentary. My uncle, who is 70, he swims, 2 miles, 2 times a week. He bikes about 40 miles a week. He plays tennis. He does all these activities. He's trying to, fight off the Grim Reaper. But if you want to be an asset, I think it starts with fitness and medical. Before you even start, and the fitness, medical, the fitness, that's when you start kind of getting into the mindset thing, because mindset is a factor. You can call it, whatever, like the winner's mindset. That's what they call it in sports and everything like that. I think it starts with that. So take care of yourself, learn to take care of other people's, i.e. medical, and then maybe incorporate the guns thing. And as far as the guns thing, most people's context is a pistol, and it's
Right.
and it might not be a full-size pistol. It's probably like a concealed carry pistol, or if you do start talking about bigger pistols, it might be a Glock 19. So cover down on concealed carry. Like, learn the basic fundamental skills and mechanics of shooting, but then concealed carry, low light stuff. Low light is a discipline in and of itself, and I'll tell you, I probably don't do it as much as I should. I do it, in the night vision stuff, and then every once in a while I'll go out and shoot some low light stuff. Like when we were in Vegas, I went out and I was the only person with nods. Nobody else had nods, so I was like, well, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for me to just shoot completely blacked out. So I'll just work my white light for all this stuff, and it was really good getting back into it. So yeah.
Well, and for folks that aren't in the night vision game yet, you can do a lot with white light.
Yeah. Yep.
And the great thing about white light is that it doesn't. I think sometimes we lose sight of context where we start talking about, especially when you start talking about low light, everybody kind of puts shooting in parentheses afterwards.
Sure.
Which is important because especially if unless you never venture out of your home after sunset, you're in the dark 50% of the time. And even if you don't venture out of your home, sometimes bad stuff comes to you. But the thing about it is that low light training doesn't have to involve firearms at all.
Correct. Yep. Just movement.
Of all the EDC quote unquote stuff that I carry, my pocket handheld white light, my little Surefire, I use that probably more than any other single thing that I carry.
I might even use my handheld light more than I use my pocket knife. Yeah. And I use my pocket knife every single day, and I probably use my light 2 or 3 times a day minimum. So yeah, you're gonna get your money's worth out of those two items. Like, in I know this is kind of a little rabbit hole, knives. I'm not real big on the whole like knife edged weapon thing. Not that, it's just not my thing. I do carry a knife, but it's a tool to me.
Right.
I'm not carrying like a karambit or one of these like kernel blades, and that's cool. Like, they have their place, but I'm not a knife guy. So if you are, that's
learn to use whatever it is that you be proficient with the tools you carry.
I took some Filipino martial arts, and the one thing I learned, I was like, oh, this is really fucking technical and complicated. Like a knife and stick stuff. Well,
yeah,
it's crazy. Anyway, rabbit hole. But
fitness, medical, low light.
Pistol, low light,
Yeah.
and then eventually start doing the rifle stuff. And if you have already started on handgun, you know this, a lot of that stuff crosses over into the rifle. Mm-hmm. So you'll probably pick the rifle up even faster. And if you start with the rifle, I would say the vast majority of people who are really good with a rifle and then they get into handguns, they kind of suck with handguns right off the rip. It's different disciplines, but the handgun transfers into the rifle a lot more than the rifle
to a handgun.
Yes.
That is, I have seen that in a couple cases over the years too. I think that the handgun is the more difficult platform to be good at.
Yeah, less points of contact, and generally you got a gun that weighs about 2 pounds, maybe 2.5 pounds, and the trigger's on the low end 3.5 pounds, and on the high end maybe up to 8, 10 pounds, 12 pounds if you got a New York trigger or something like that.
Right.
It's physics. It's harder to shoot that if the gun weighs less than the trigger pull. There's going to be some movement, some cavitation, unless you take steps to counteract that. Anyway, but yeah, eventually rifle. If you want to learn some more like dude-based stuff, I'm not talking about end of the world stuff. I mean, I guess you could apply this, but dude, like, go join an orienteering club. Like, learn how to land nav. Learn
basic
how to
map and compass.
That's basic human stuff. Learning how to get from point A to point B, orient yourself. Okay, I'm looking at a map. That's that hill. That's that hill. I'm about here. Okay, cool. And then you can walk to another point off in the distance using your map and everything like that. Like, that's just yeah. It's an analog skill that every dude should have, if you ask me. And if you're an orienteer, you're hiking. It's good physical fitness, so you're getting your steps in doing that stuff. But here's the thing: if you have the time and the resources, you can get the same level of training as special operations guys get. I mean, you're going to pay for it, and it's going to take up a lot of your time, but there ain't nothing you can't do. Like, if you want to go to classes that specialize in counter surveillance stuff, you can do that. Yeah. Anything
it's out there.
Yeah, anything you can think of, it's out there, and apply that to your context. Like, if you're not in a rural area, you probably don't necessarily need to learn backcountry, pack animal stuff, which those classes are out there too if you want to do that. But yeah, apply it to your context. And I think
you're layering capabilities at that point based on whatever your perceived need is.
And at least when you're new to this, your training should cover down on probably 100% of your context. Mm-hmm. So maybe you shouldn't go take an aerial target engagement class as your second class. That's not really your context yet. Eventually, after you've taken a dozen or 12 classes or whatever, it's like, all right, now I just want to have some fun. I want to have an experience. Mm-hmm. Got it, cool. You can totally do that. But when you're new, when you're learning,
if your resources are limited.
Yeah, keep it contextually relevant. I think context is key. So.
Makes a lot of sense. Well, thank you for taking the time to sit down with us. I really appreciate it, and hope everybody got something out of it.
Dude, I had a great time. Thanks for having me on here. Thanks for doing the other stuff we did, and thanks for coming out and training with us at Greenline. It's always a pleasure having you guys.
Yeah. looking forward to seeing you guys again soon.
Yeah, man.
right.
See you at the summit for sure.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, dude.